Imagine waking up to a medieval news alert that would make modern markets implode. Your king has been kidnapped, not by bandits, but by a fully legal international business model. Because in the Middle Ages, capture wasn't an accident of war, it was a revenue stream. A human being could be turned into a contract, a negotiation, a tax crisis, and a national humiliation, sometimes all in the same week. That's the medieval ransom machine, a system so normalized that armies marched with the quiet hope of taking valuable people alive, and governments kept the terrifying knowledge that one bad day could bankrupt an entire realm. Here's how the machine worked. Step 1. Find a high-value body, a king, duke, count, famous knight, rich merchant, or even the heir of someone important. Step 2. Prove you own him, because ownership of a prisoner mattered. Captors could argue over who captured whom, and the right to ransom could be treated like property. Step 3. Keep him alive, not out of mercy, but because a dead prisoner is worthless. Step 4. Name a price that hurts but doesn't kill the buyer, because the goal is payment, not revenge. Then comes the part that made this system terrifyingly powerful. The price didn't have to be paid by one person. The bill could be distributed across an entire kingdom through emergency taxation, forced loans, church contributions, seized plate, and political deals, meaning a single capture could reach into every pocket in the country. And this isn't theory. It happened at the highest level. When Richard I of England was seized returning from the Crusade, his release wasn't a heroic rescue. It was a financial operation. His freedom was secured through massive fundraising, including heavy taxation and loans, with an initial payment of 100,000 marks and further obligations layered on top. That is a medieval state behaving like a modern government under hostage crisis. Raise cash fast, squeeze institutions, promise more later, and pray your credibility holds. Now scale that logic across Europe, and you start to see why ransom wasn't just a thing that happened. It was a parallel economy attached to war. Knights went to battle with a brutal calculation. Killing is quick glory, but capturing is long money. A famous prisoner could be worth more than years of income. Whole retinues specialized in grabbing nobles, isolating them, hauling them to safe strongholds, and turning battlefield chaos into profit.
And the machine didn't stop at the prisoner. It used hostages as collateral. If a king couldn't pay immediately, he didn't just promise. He handed over sons, nephews, cousins, high-born companions, human security deposits, so the other side knew the money would come. The result was a medieval version of credit. Your social rank became your loanworthiness, your family became your collateral, and your kingdom became the payment plan. This is why ransom could wreck politics. To raise the money, rulers had to bargain with nobles, parliaments, towns, and the church, giving away privileges, selling offices, granting tax exemptions later, or surrendering strategic concessions just to keep the hostage alive and the regime stable. And inside the prison, the psychological game never stopped. A royal hostage wasn't necessarily thrown into a filthy pit. Often he was housed respectably. But that respect was a cage made of humiliation and leverage. Strict limits on movement, staged courtesy, controlled contact, constant reminders that your fate depends on how quickly your people can be squeezed. The captor could tighten or loosen conditions to send messages. Delay payment? The guard count increases. Talk back? Your letters stop. Your men raise an army? Your price rises. And all the while, the hostage's mere existence becomes a political weapon. Rivals at home whisper, "Why pay so much for him?" Enemies whisper, "We can keep him forever." And allies calculate whether rescuing him is cheaper than ransoming him. That's how kingdoms got bankrupted. not because they lacked courage, but because the ransom machine forced them into impossible choices. Pay the fortune and survive today, or refuse and fracture tomorrow. Now here's the twist that makes this topic addictive. Ransom didn't just punish losers, it shaped how wars were fought. If the enemy's elites were more valuable alive than dead, battles became hunts for status. Captors learned to identify coats of arms, heraldry, banners, the medieval version of scanning for a VIP. Soldiers might ignore ordinary fighters to chase one richly armoured target because that one target could fund their entire career. And because the system was so profitable, it created a darker underside. Prisoners could be traded, their ransom rights sold or disputed. Captors could quarrel like businessmen over who gets the asset. And political factions could sabotage negotiations because a captive king was sometimes more useful as a bargaining chip than as a ruler. Think about that. A country can be governed by a man who is physically absent, while everyone fights over the price tag of his body. That's not just history, it's a thriller plot that actually happened, repeatedly. The machine also pulled entire societies into the drama. Towns pressured to contribute, churches pressured to donate, merchants forced into emergency loans, families selling land, jewels, and future inheritances to buy back one name. And the ransom machine didn't always end cleanly. Even after payment, the damage lingered. Higher taxes became permanent habits. New, temporary levies never disappeared. Political concessions stayed conceded. Resentment fermented. Because people don't forget the year their food, wages, and property was swallowed by one man's freedom. The ransom machine didn't only capture kings, it captured the idea of safety. Castles and armies looked strong, but one unlucky day could turn a realm into a debtor begging for time. War wasn't just blood and banners, it was an accounting system with chains attached. And the moment a royal hostage was taken, the battlefield moved into counting houses, churches, council chambers, and kitchens. Medieval Europe didn't just fight wars, it ran a grim marketplace where human rank had a price, and that price could topple governments. So when you hear hostage king, don't picture a simple prison story. Picture a nation being invoiced for its own leader, while enemies milk the clock, allies argue over the bill, and the captive waits in the most medieval terror of all. Not execution, but the slow realization that your freedom depends on how much pain your kingdom can survive.